Today is Wednesday, December 14th, 2011. I'm Corey Emanuel, and this is CMBG News. In today's top stories, former Syracuse basketball coach Jim Boeheim isn't quite out of the spotlight just yet. Two men who accused a former Syracuse University assistant basketball coach of sexual abuse have filed a defamation lawsuit in a New York court against the university and its longtime head basketball coach Jim Boeheim, their attorney announced Tuesday. Bobby Davis and his stepbrother Mike Lane have alleged that Bernie Fine repeatedly abused them when they were children. The former assistant coach has not been charged with a crime and has maintained his innocence, saying the allegations are patently false in every aspect. Boeheim initially supported Fine, accusing Lane and Davis of fabricating their accusations of Fine's alleged misconduct. He later apologized for his comments, saying, "I believe I misspoke very badly in my response to the allegations that have been made. I shouldn't have questioned what the accusers expressed or their motives." Reading from a written statement on Tuesday, Lane told reporters that Boeheim's initial comments made him feel sick to his stomach and that he worried they may have stopped others from coming forward. Lane is now saying that he wants to use his voice to encourage young victims of abuse to speak up. "I am coming forth to help give children the courage to talk. I was afraid all my life to talk about this," he said. Last week, prosecutors noted that despite the credible allegations, they cannot bring charges against the former coach because the statute of limitations had expired. But that does not mean Fine may not face charges. Federal authorities are now investigating other allegations of misconduct. The Postal Service has delayed cutbacks until May. The U.S. Postal Service agreed Tuesday to delay the closing of 252 mail processing centers and 3,700 local post offices until mid-May. In a statement, the ailing agency said it would hold off on closings by several weeks to give Congress more time to pass legislation that would give it more authority and liquidity to fight off bankruptcy. The Postal Service, which is expected to default Friday on a $5.5 billion payment to the Treasury, is forecast to lose a record $14.1 billion next year. Last week, the Postal Service said it was moving forward on cutbacks nationally. It had planned to begin closing processing centers as early as April and shutter some postal offices near next year. In all, about 100,000 postal employees could be cut as a result of the various closures, resulting in savings of up to $6.5 billion a year. The Postal Service, an independent agency of the government, does not receive tax money, but it is subject to congressional control on major aspects of its operations. Separate bills that have passed at the House and the Senate committees would give the Postal Service more authority to reduce delivery to 5 days a week, raise stamp prices, and reduce health care and other labor costs. At least 32 people were killed across Syria on Tuesday, including 7 members of the security forces, amid rising sectarian tensions in some places. The deaths added to a toll that was estimated by a United Nations official on Monday at more than 5,000 people since the uprising began in March. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said 19 people died in the northern province of Idlib near the Turkish border when security forces loyal to the government of President Bashar al-Assad fired at them. 5 were killed in the province of Homs in central Syria and 1 in the nearby province of Hama. In addition, 7 members of the security forces were killed in an attack on their military vehicle in the Bab al-Hawa area in Idlib province, according to the observatory, an opposition group based in London. The attack, it said, was its retaliation for the shooting of anti-government protesters earlier in the day in the province. Meanwhile, activists said the Syrian authorities had charged an American-born blogger in Syria, Razan Ghazawi, with trying to incite sectarian strife. Ms. Ghazawi has written extensively on her blog, Ranzaniyat, about the uprising against Mr. Assad and has documented human rights abuses. She was arrested on December 4th at the Syrian-Jordanian border on her way to Amman, Jordan, for a conference on press freedoms. The charges include spreading false information and weakening the sentiment of nationalism. Conviction could carry a prison term of up to 15 years. Investigators have found the body of a woman in a shed belonging to the gunman who killed 4 people and wounded 125 in eastern Belgium on Tuesday. The body was found following an overnight search of the building, which police said the shooter, Nordine Abrani, had used to grow cannabis. The 33-year-old brought carnage to the eastern city of Liege by hurling grenades and spraying bullets into crowds of Christmas shoppers. 2 boys, aged 15 and 17, were killed, along with a 75-year-old woman and a toddler of just 17 months, whom hospital doctors fought for hours to save. On the morning of the killings, he had been called in for questioning by police in a sexual abuse case, the Associated Press reported. Instead of reporting to the police station as requested, he took a light automatic rifle, a handgun, and several grenades and went onto the roof of a bakery in the central St. Lambert Square before hurling the weapons into the crowd. How exactly Amrani died after the spree is still unclear. Random killings are rare in Belgium. Most recently, in January 2009, a man stabbed 2 infants and a woman to death and injured 13 at a nursery in the town of Demermunde. Donald Trump has pulled the plug on moderating the GOP debate, stating, "The Republican Party candidates are very concerned that I will announce my candidacy for President of the United States and as an independent, and that unless conclusively agree not to run as independent, they will not agree to attend or be part of the Newsmax debate scheduled for December 27, 2011. It is very important to me that the right Republican candidate be chosen to defeat the failed and very destructive Obama administration. But if that Republican, in my opinion, is not the right candidate, I am not willing to give up my right to run as an independent candidate. Therefore, so that there is no conflict of interest within the Republican Party, I have decided not to be the moderator of the Newsmax debate. The American people are embarrassed by the gridlock currently taking place in Washington. I must leave all of my options open because above all else, we must make America great again." Here at CMBG, we want to know what you, the viewer, thinks about Donald Trump running as an independent candidate for election 2012. Share your thoughts on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Cook Morton Broadcasting. A woman was recovering in a burns unit in Alabama on Thursday after her face caught fire during routine surgery. Mother of 3, Kim Grice, from Holt, Florida, was having cysts removed from her head at a medical center in Crestview, Florida, when the blaze suddenly erupted, leaving her with horrific burns to her face and neck, the Crestview News Bulletin reported. The 29-year-old, who was unconscious during the incident, was immediately flown to the hospital in Alabama on Tuesday after local firefighters responded to the flash fire. It was not clear what caused the flames. Ann Grice, Kim's mother, told the Destin Law, "Kim told me they woke me up and everyone around me was hysterical. I don't know what happened to me. The doctors and the hospital are not telling us what happened," Grice's uncle Ted Grice said. They said they had never seen anything like it before, and they are terribly sorry that it happened. A statement from the North Okaloosa Medical Center said the hospital deeply regrets today's event in which a patient sustained burns during a procedure in our ambulatory surgery center. The staff took immediate steps to respond, including moving the patient to the hospital's emergency department. We're conducting a thorough review to fully understand what happened in a deliberate effort to prevent such an event from occurring again, it added. A man accused of firing shots at the White House in an attempt to kill President Barack Obama in November is scheduled to be back in court. Oscar Romero Ortega Hernandez of Idaho is due in court for a hearing Wednesday. Ortega is accused of using an assault rifle to fire at the White House on the evening of November 11th when Obama was out of town. One bullet smashed into a window of the living quarters of the executive mansion but was stopped by ballistic glass. Acquaintances have said he acted strangely in recent months, suggesting he believed he was Jesus and calling Obama the devil. Preliminary psychiatric screening found him competent to stand trial. The federal prosecutors are asking for more extensive tests. Republican and Democratic lawmakers were locked in an end-of-year fight on Tuesday that threatens a government shutdown, an effective tax hike for 160 million Americans, and the loss of benefits for millions of unemployed. With just days left to resolve the crisis, both parties accuse each other of playing politics with Americans' livelihoods, even as they try to gain the upper hand with a complex series of maneuvers on Capitol Hill. At the center of the drama are efforts to extend aid to the long-term unemployed and a payroll tax cut for Americans that some economists say will boost the country's fragile economic recovery, and a massive spending bill that will keep the government operating beyond Friday. Republicans in the House of Representatives defied a veto threat from President Obama and passed a bill that would force him to speed up a decision on a controversial oil pipeline, even as it renews a payroll tax cut that Democrats have been seeking. The bill was widely expected to pass the Republican-led chamber and will almost certainly die in the Democratic-controlled Senate. While both Republican and Democratic leaders have expressed confidence that the payroll tax cut and unemployment benefits will extend before December 31st, it remains far from clear how both parties will find common ground. The White House said it was still hopeful of an 11th hour deal. Obama wants to pay for the $120 billion cost of the payroll tax cut by levying a surtax on millionaires. Republicans strongly oppose that. Without an extension, the payroll tax would revert to a 6.2% from its current rate of 4.2%, resulting in an average increase of $1,000 per family for 160 million Americans. Well, you're up to date now this hour. We'll be right back here on CMBG News after this short break. And welcome back to CMBG News. I'm Emanuel. In world news today, an Italian man with extreme right-wing views opened fire in an outdoor market in Florence Tuesday, killing 2 vendors from Senegal, then critically wounding 3 other Senegalese immigrants in another Florence market before killing himself, authorities said. Florence prosecutor Giuseppe Guadatraci said the man shot himself in the head in an underground parking lot under the covered market of San Lorenzo in the heart of the Tuscan capital as police were approaching him. Investigators identified the attacker as 50-year-old Gianluca Casseri. RAI State TV said he was known to police for having participated in racist marches by an extreme right-wing group. It said he used a .357 Magnum revolver. Italy's President Giorgio Napolitano decried what he called the killing of 2 foreign workers and denounced this blind explosion of hatred. In a statement, Napolitano called on Italian authorities and society to combat in the bud every form of intolerance and to reaffirm the tradition of openness and solidarity in our country. The body of a woman has been found in the garage of a grenade-lobbing gunman who killed 3 people and injured 123 others in an attack in the city of Leeds. Officials said Wednesday lead prosecutor Daniel Renes said the body of a woman in her 40s was discovered during a search of Nordine Amrani's property, and she was shot in the head before the murderous spree of Leeds main square. News reports said the attack began at about 12:30 p.m. when Amrani lobbed several grenades at the bus shelter in Place St. Lambert, a busy downtown square. The report said witnesses reported 4 explosions and gunfire. Police say 33-year-old Amrani was a league resident who had done jail time for offenses involving guns, drugs, and sexual abuse. He was among the dead, but Reynolds told reporters it was unclear if he committed suicide or died by accident. He did not die at the hands of police, she said. Beyond the dead and injured, Reynolds said some 40 people had to be treated for psychiatrical trauma. Reynolds said Amrani had been summoned for police questioning on Tuesday, but the reason for the questioning was not clear. Officials said Amrani left his home in League with a backpack armed with hand grenades, a revolver, and an assault rifle. News reports said police helicopters were flying over the city and a medical post had been set up in the courtyard of the Palace of the Police Bishop's Courthouse located on the site. In an interview with Fox News, Defense Secretary Leon Panetti said the stealth drone campaign along the Iran-Afghanistan border will absolutely continue despite the loss of a valuable and sophisticated drone to Iran. The mysterious loss of the RQ-170 Sentinel drone was revealed not only that the U.S. was spying on Iran, but also that the program was being run from Shingad Air Base in western Afghanistan. According to Fox News, Panetta would not comment directly on what the drone was doing over Iran, but said the U.S. military has no plans to halt the drone operation out of western Afghanistan. Those operations have to be protected in order to do the job and the mission that they're involved with, he said. When asked if we would continue those missions as they have been conducted out of Afghanistan, he responded with one word: absolutely. Panetta would not speculate about whether the Sentinel drone had been felled by a cyber attack or a high-tech jamming device. President Obama said on Monday he would not comment on the situation beyond saying the U.S. had asked the Iranians to give it back. We will see how the Iranians respond, he said. Panetta will travel later this week to Baghdad for a ceremony to mark the end of the U.S. war in Iraq. The secretary did not agree with the assessment of Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki in Washington Monday, suggesting Iranian interference in Iraq would disappear once all U.S. troops have gone home. As tensions grow over local maritime disputes and U.S. influence in the South China Sea, China's president said Tuesday that its Navy should make extended preparations for military combat, the AFP reported. President Hu Jintao told the Central Military Commission its Navy should modernize in the interest of the national security. The Chinese Navy has grown in recent years from a coastal protection force to one spanning the globe, sending ships as far as the Caribbean on goodwill missions and into the Mediterranean to escort vessels evacuating Chinese citizens from the fighting in Libya. Chinese said it is considering an offer from the Seychelles to host Chinese naval ships in the Indian Ocean island nation, highlighting the increasing global reach of the Navy that recently launched its first aircraft carrier. China's military expansion and strong assertions of claims to disputed territory have raised regional concerns, prompting many of China's neighbors to strengthen ties with the U.S. military that has traditionally predominated in the Asia-Pacific. George Little, a Pentagon spokesman, downplayed Hu's comments, saying China has the right to develop its military according to the report, but he went on to say China should be transparent in the process. Egyptians headed to the polls Wednesday for a critical round of voting to shape the new parliament. The second round in the country's three-stage election process, Wednesday's vote is vital because it includes Giza, Luxor, Aswan, and Ismailia regions, which have historically favored conservative Islamic candidates. Egypt's Islamic claimed victory in the first round of elections in another part of the country last week. The early results have triggered tensions between leaders of the Islamic parties and the military council that is running Egypt until a new government is formed. According to media reports, General Mukhtar Amula, a high-ranking military official, said the military would increase its role in the drafting of Egypt's constitution. The deputy director of the Muslim Brotherhood's party said it will pull out participating in a government advisory board. The results of Wednesday's election will help indicate whether the tensions are impacting votes and will give an indication of how much strength minority parties are likely to have in Parliament. An earthquake measuring 7.1 magnitude hit Papua New Guinea on Wednesday afternoon, the United States Geological Survey said. The tremor struck at a depth of 75 miles, about 137 miles north-northwest of the capital port Moresby at 3:05 p.m. local time. Witnesses in Port Moresby told AFP that people came running out of buildings, power lines swayed, and parked cars rocked. It was pretty strong. Everybody felt it. I was sitting in my car when it hit, and it was rocking, 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 an AFP photographer said. According to the Geoscience Australia, the tremor was not expected to create a tsunami. Seismologist Clive Collins said the quake could cause other problems like landslides for the nearest largest town, Waiau, about 12 miles from the epicenter, and Lae, by 55 miles away. Papua New Guinea is regularly hit by earthquakes due to its proximity to the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire, a hotspot for seismic activity due to friction between tectonic plates. Kenyan soldiers and members of an extremist Islamic militant group have been fighting each other in Somalia since Kenya invaded 2 months ago. Now their spokesmen are taking the battle to Twitter. Both groups are sending taunts, accusations, and insults directly traded in a rare engagement on the internet, this being called a social networking war. The propaganda war on the website shows the increasingly sophisticated use of media by both sides and underscores that there is often little reliable information about the conflict in Somalia that now directly or indirectly involves a half a dozen nations, analysts say. On Monday, the Islamic insurgent group Al-Shabaab used its Twitter feed to accuse Kenya of having a history of committing barbarous acts toward ethnic Somalis, and cited a 1984 massacre where human rights groups say Kenyan troops killed around 3,000 ethnically Somali men in eastern Kenya. Addressing more recent actions, Al-Shabaab's tweets that began last week claimed that Kenyan soldiers in Somalia flee from confrontation and flinch in the face of death. The Twitter feed also described Al-Shabaab's own press release, giving details about Bahraini soldiers killed in an October battle between African Union peacekeeping troops and the insurgents. Al-Shabaab claimed to have killed more than 150 AU troops at the time. Well, we're going to go to a break now. We'll be right back right after these brief messages. And welcome back to CMBG News. I'm Corey Emanuel. Ex-Penn State coach Jerry Sandusky waived his preliminary hearing and will go straight to trial. Many were stunned yesterday when former Penn State coach Jerry Sandusky decided to waive his hearing, meaning there will be no testimony and the case will proceed to common pleas court. Sandusky is out on a $250,000 bail, wearing an ankle monitor, and forbidden from contact with children. He has been charged with 50 counts related to the alleged sexual abuse of 10 boys. At a preliminary hearing, a judge will decide if prosecutors have enough evidence to send the case to trial. The judge yesterday morning, questioned Sandusky about the waiver and asked if he understood his rights, and Sandusky said he did. Defense lawyers sometimes waive preliminary hearings under these circumstances to avoid more negative publicity. We plan to proceed with Jerry's hearing, and Jerry is looking forward to the opportunity to face his accusers, said lawyer Joe Amendola. Sandusky is a former Penn State assistant football coach who founded the Second Mile Children's Charity, from which all of his alleged victims came, said prosecutors. 2 U.S. Army helicopters crashed Monday night in a training area at a joint base Lewis McChord south of Tacoma, Washington, killing 4 Army aviators. Base officials said the accident occurred sometime after 8 p.m. and involved 2 OH-58 Kiowas small observation rotorcraft that have been part of the Army's fleet since the Vietnam War. Military investigators already have begun an inquiry into the cause of the crash, which occurred inside the Southwest Training Area at the base, which is the largest military facility in the western U.S. The probe will be led by the Combat Readiness Center at Fort Rucker, Alabama. The names of the dead crewmen will not be released until the families have been notified. Frightening discoveries were made at Head Start centers across the country. It's a parent's worst nightmare. A machete near a play area. Household chemicals accessible to preschoolers, and instructors teaching without a criminal background check. These violations and others were found at Head Start centers across the country, according to a report released Tuesday by the Inspector General of the Health and Human Services Department. Head Start, the federal program with roots in President Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty, provides early education services to nearly 1 million low-income kids nationwide. The federal government gives grant dollars to public, nonprofit, and for-profit programs to provide the services. Among the violations found, a screw protruding from a bookcase at child height level in Longmont, Colorado, a children's bathroom in Edna, Texas without lighting for months, and expired infant formula in the refrigerator of a center in the District of Columbia. The Inspector General's review was compiled using 24 audits of Head Start grantees running 175 facilities in states: Connecticut, New York, Georgia, Wisconsin, Texas, Colorado, California, and the District of Columbia from May 2009 to October 2010. While the review was of just a fraction of the approximately 1,600 Head Start grantees, it still raises red flags about the safety of children in such programs. Ensuring quality in Head Start programs has been an ongoing issue. Last month at a stop in Yeaton, Pennsylvania, President Barack Obama called Head Start an outstanding program and a critical investment, but he said more accountability was needed. Under new rules that he announced, the lower-performing Head Start programs will have to compete for funding if they have deficiencies discovered in their on-site review or don't meet other standards. A Verizon Wireless text triggered panic in New Jersey on Monday. Verizon Wireless sent an emergency alert via text to wireless customers in Middlesex, Monmouth, and Ocean counties, warning of a civil emergency and telling people to take shelter now, according to the Associated Press. The message was intended to be a test, but was not labeled as such, the company later said. The report started a chain reaction across a wide swatch of central New Jersey, prompting a high call volume to 911. Within about 90 minutes, the state Homeland Security and Emergency Management offices posted on Twitter that no emergency existed, but by then, people had called a variety of local, county, and state agencies to express their concerns, the AP reported. A Verizon spokeswoman told the Associated Press in an email that the company was sorry for any inconvenience it caused, but didn't say why the message was sent without being labeled as a test. Is the owner of the New York Jets challenging Vladimir Putin in the presidential election? The answer is yes. Billionaire tycoon Mikhail Prokhorov could find himself leading not only the Nets, but also Russia after announcing his presidential candidacy. This is the most important decision of my life, Prokofiev said at the news conference he held in Moscow to make the big announcement. Prokofiev, whose wealth the Forbes magazine has estimated at $18 billion, has been cautious not to cross Putin's path in the past. But now the tycoon's candidacy may now pose a serious challenge to Putin, whose authority has been dented by his party's poor showing in Russia's December 4th parliamentary election and allegations of widespread fraud during the balloting. Prokofiev, 46, said he hopes to win the support of Russia's growing middle class. He now faces the immediate challenge of collecting the 2 million signatures required to qualify for the presidential race. Prokofiev, who made his fortune in metals and banking, became a majority stakeholder in the New Jersey Nets last year. He has since shown a willingness to travel in his quest to build a global fan base for the U.S. pro basketball team and has made trades for top players. You're now up to date with today's headlines. Stick around. We'll be right back at CMBG News. And welcome back to CMBG News. 4 more suspects are in custody following the deadly shooting of a New York City police officer who was responding to a break-in in Brooklyn. NYPD spokesman Paul Brown says they include a man who had struggled with an officer at the shooting scene on Monday. They also include 2 people who were initially believed to be witnesses, plus a suspected getaway driver. Officer Peter Fagoski was shot in the face early Monday in a Brooklyn apartment. Suspected gunman Lamont Proud was arrested shortly afterward on murder charges. Police Commissioner Raymond Kelly says Fagoski's partner, Glenn Estrada, was struggling with one suspect in front of the building when he heard the shot and saw the 27-year-old Pride run away. Police say that the suspect took off while Estrada chased Pride for blocks and captured him. There was no immediate information on whether the suspects had lawyers or when they would be arraigned. A former rural Missouri sheriff's deputy is suspected of killing his ex-wife and her new boyfriend before leading officers on a high-speed chase that ended with a shootout at a hotel early Sunday. The night's drama began about 70 miles to the southeast in the rural town of Salem, where authorities say former Dent County Sheriff Deputy 44-year-old Marvin Rice went to the home of his ex-wife and her current boyfriend, demanding custody of his 2-year-old son and pulling out a handgun during an argument. 32-year-old Annette Durham and 39-year-old Stephen Stokamp were fatally shot. Rice fled with the boy while Durham's 6-year-old daughter, who heard the gunshots from a bedroom, ran to a neighbor who called authorities, the sheriff's office said. Authorities picked up on Rice's cell phone heading north on US 63, and a chase ensued at speeds of up to 100 miles per hour. They believe Rice may have been headed to a mental health facility at a Veteran Affairs hospital. Deputy Rice is in a Columbia hospital recovering from being wounded after the shootout with police. Los Angeles police say a man used a broken broom handle to kill his grandmother. The 42-year-old man was arrested Tuesday for stabbing his 89-year-old grandmother to death. The arrest came after SWAT officers surrounded the South Los Angeles home where he was hiding after the alleged attack, the Los Angeles Times reported. The woman was stabbed at around 2 p.m., a police spokesperson said. She was taken to a local hospital where she died later. Her grandson was arrested a few hours later. Also in Los Angeles, friends and neighbors of a gunman who was shot dead by police as he fired randomly at passing cars on a Hollywood street critically wounded one man, said he was deeply troubled by the recent breakup with his girlfriend. Authorities released the identity of Tyler Brim Saturday and examined the 26-year-old's body. Los Angeles County Colonel Lieutenant Larry Dietz said a day after the shootout at Hollywood's intersection at Sunset and Vine. Investigators have not released a motive for Friday's attack. Friends and neighbors said Brim was stung by the relationship's end. Brim walked down the middle of Sunset Boulevard, firing on motorists with no clear target and injuring 3 of them until 2 police officers who just happened to be in the area and an off-duty motorcycle officer working movie set security and LAPD detective shot and killed him, authorities said. In amateur video taken at the shooting scene, the gunman appeared to have short hair and wore jeans and a white tank top. He paced back and forth near the busy intersection with Vine Street, firing close to 20 rounds from what appeared to be a .40 caliber handgun, police said. Several witnesses reported seeing him reload at least once. In other news, more hazing at Florida A&M University. 3 members of the marching band have been charged with hazing a fellow member of the famous Marching 100 who took her complaints to police. The freshman Bria Hunter suffered a cracked femur, deep bone bruising, and blood clots after being beaten repeatedly on the thighs by 2 of her fellow students, according to arrest affidavits from Tallahassee police. Hunter went to the hospital on November 7th. Only weeks later, 26-year-old drum major Robert Champion was killed after being hazed. The school's board of trustees voted last week to reprimand its president in the wake of Champion's death, and the band's director has been placed on administrative leave while state police investigate. Incidents of hazing have followed the FAMU band for years. In 2001, a student was paddled so badly he had to be hospitalized for kidney failure, and just weeks later, Champion's death, band director Julian White suspended 26 members for hazing. 23-year-old Sean Hobson, 19-year-old Aaron Golson, and 22-year-old James Harris were booked Monday. All 3 are charged with hazing, a crime under Florida law, while Hobson and Golson are charged with felony battery as well. In more world news, Italy began a week of strikes by the 3 biggest labor unions Monday. Prime Minister Mario Monti's €33 billion austerity package, which the government may soften slightly to meet some of their demands. Port, highway, and haulage personnel stopped work for 3 hours, and metal workers, including those at car maker Fiat, put down their tools for 8 hours. Print and press operators stopped for a full shift, and most newspapers won't publish on Tuesday. Public transport strikes will be held on December 15th through the 16th. Bank employees will halt work for the afternoon of December 16th, and the public administration will close down for a whole day on December 19th. For the first time in 6 years of division, the 3 main union leaders shared a stage together when they spoke to striking workers in front of Parliament. Monti failed to thwart the strikes during a last-ditch meeting on Sunday night with union leaders. Tunisia on Monday installed as its new president a former dissident who was imprisoned and then exiled for opposing former President Zine al-Abidine bin Ali, a new landmark in the country's post-revolutionary transition to democracy. Members of the Constitutional Assembly, Tunisia's interim parliament, voted to elect Moncef Marzouki as president, the second most powerful role after the prime minister. 66-year-old Marzouki is respected by many Tunisians for his implacable opposition to the autocratic Ben Ali. As president, he will be a secularist counterweight to the moderate Islamist Party, which is now Tunisia's dominant political force. Tunisia became the birthplace of the Arab Spring uprisings in January, when the protests forced Ben Ali in power for more than 23 years to flee to Saudi Arabia. that inspired revolutions in Egypt and Libya, as well as unrest in other Middle Eastern states. 15 elementary students are killed and 8 others are injured in a school bus accident in eastern China. Local government officials said Tuesday the bus had been taking the students home on Monday afternoon when it overturned and slammed into a ditch in Feng County, Jiangsu Province. The injured students were taken to nearby hospitals in the area, with at least one child reported to have serious injuries. According to CNN, the state-run Xinhua news agency said the bus had attempted to avoid a pedicab but ended up crashing into the ditch, which was filled with around 60 centimeters of water. It said some of the trapped students on the bus were drowned or suffocated as water rushed in. The bus was carrying 29 students on board when the accident happened. The driver, who suffered only minor injuries, had been detained by the police, and Xinhua said. Last month, 19 children were killed when a 9-seat school bus packed with 64 passengers collided with a truck in Gansu, northwestern China. The triggered widespread anger across China about the safety of school buses. Earlier this week, the State Council in Beijing published draft guidance aimed at establishing safety standards for school buses. The draft demands local government, schools, and bus drivers strictly obey safety regulations, including safety checks every 6 months. Rival militias in an area southwest of the Libyan capital exchanged heavy gunfire on Monday after a dispute flared up between them and local residents that had killed at least 4 people. The conflict, rooted in an old tribal rivalry, is one of the hundreds of fault lines running through Libyan society that have left the new rulers struggling to hold the country together since the overthrow of the former leader Muammar Gaddafi. Reuters journalist in Wamis, about 120 miles from Tripoli, said the fighting was between members of the El Mashah tribe, based around the town, and fighters from the larger town of Zintan in the mountains to the north. Shots, including from machine guns, could be heard, and all men and boys in Wamis were carrying rifles, they said. The Reuters journalists were shown at school and a mosque which had been hit by artillery or rocket fire, and also saw evidence of shells or rockets landing between houses in a residential area. Residents said that 3 people have been killed in attacks on the town by fighters from Zintan over the past 48 hours. We'll be right back here on CMBG News after this short break. And welcome back to CMBG News. The UN envoy behind a Yemen power transfer deal to end months of protests called on Monday for southern separatists and northern Shiite rebels to be included as a fragile peace appeared to be holding in the capital Sinai. The comments came during a visit to the southern port city of Aden, where at least 16 prisoners, including al-Qaeda members, tunneled out on Monday in a setback to efforts to rein in Islamic militants. A new government set up last week after President Ali Abdullah Saleh handed over power to his deputy Abd Rabbu Mansur Hadi under the Gulf Peace Plan faces multiple challenges. These include a wrecked economy, a resurgent separatist sentiment in the south, and a rebellion by Houthi Shiite tribesmen in the northern province of Sadai. UN envoy Jamal Ben Omar in Yemen to oversee implementation of the Gulf Accord he orchestrated last month between Saleh and opposition leaders on Sunday night met with southern leaders demanding secession from the county formed by the merger of the South Yemen with the Saleh-ruled North in 1990. Democratic Republic of Congo President Joseph Kabila on Monday conceded mistakes had been made in last month's election which returned him to power, but rejected mounting criticism that the results lacked credibility. A leader of Congo's highly influential Catholic Church said the results handing Kabila victory over challenger Etienne Tshisekedi in the November 28th vote do not conform to the truth. The U.S.-based Carter Center, which monitors polls around the world, said on Saturday the results lack credibility. Kabila brushed off the doubts, and the head of the election commission said irregularities during the poll were not enough to have changed the outcome. The vote was meant to move the Central African country towards greater stability after a 1998 to 2003 war that killed more than 5 million people. Instead, it was marked by violence and chaotic preparations in addition to the allegations of fraud. UN Rights Chief Navi Pillay says more than 5,000 have died in the 9-month-long Syrian conflict. Pillay, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, told reporters Monday that she told Security Council members of the increase in deaths during an afternoon briefing on the rights situation in the country. She says at least 300 children are among those who have died and that there are thousands of people in detention. Pillay noted that the last time she briefed the council on Syria in August, just 2,000 people had been killed. Last month, Russia and China vetoed a Western-backed UN Security Council resolution condemning the bloodshed in Syria. Mexican soldiers battled suspected drug cartel members just south of the Texas border, killing 11 gunmen, the Army said Monday. One soldier was reported wounded. The clash began when soldiers on patrol were fired on Saturday from a building in the city of Valhermoso, south of Brownsville, Texas, the Defense Department said in a news release. The troops later seized the building, finding 11 dead gunmen and 73 rifles inside, it said. 2 suspects were arrested. The wounded soldier was taken to the hospital for treatment. His condition is unknown. Both the Gulf and Zetas drug cartels operate in that area. In Veracruz, unidentified assailants tossed a bomb into a building where a cockfight was being held early Sunday. 1 man was killed and 9 others slightly wounded, the statement said. The wounded were treated in hospitals and released. State prosecutors did not specify what type of explosive was involved. They also did not say if they had arrested any suspects or uncovered a motive for the attack. Mexican Marines captured a founding member of the brutal Zetas drug cartel Monday, the Navy announced. Marines arrested Raul Lucio Hernandez